A pitcher threw a ball, it killed a man, and baseball kept playing that same day like nothing happened. That's not even the darkest moment on this list. Because somewhere on this countdown, a superstar boards a plane he doesn't need to be on, a scandal gets buried by a court, then unburied a century later, and the World Series itself gets erased, not postponed, erased. 10 moments ranked by how deeply they scarred this sport. Stay until the end because number 1 didn't just make headlines, it created the very office of the commissioner that still runs baseball today. Let's start at the bottom of the list with a death nobody saw coming. Number 10. Wrigley Field, June 22nd, 2002. Warm-up start. The Cardinals' ace isn't there. Team staff send hotel workers to check his room. They break in. Darryl Kyle, 33 years old, is dead in his bed. No fight, no warning, just gone. The autopsy uncovers something terrifying. 2 of his 3 coronary arteries were nearly 90% blocked, a heart almost 25% larger than it should be. Nobody knew, not even Kyle. He'd mentioned shoulder pain to his brother the night before. That was the only clue anyone got. This came 4 days after his team lost their broadcaster. The Cardinals were already in mourning. Now this. Baseball hadn't lost an active player mid-season since one man decades earlier, a story we're coming back to. And Kyle's death forced something the sport had ignored for years, real cardiac screening for professional athletes. But an unseen medical tragedy is one thing. What happens when the entire country grinds to a halt and baseball has to decide whether a game even matters anymore? Number 9. September 11th, 2001. By late morning, Commissioner Bud Selig makes a call nobody wants to make, but everyone understands. Baseball stops. Not for a day, for 6. It's the first time the sport has gone silent since World War II. The World Series gets pushed into November for the first time ever. When players finally take the field again, nothing feels normal. One Yankee said that day would change how his team saw itself, permanently. Mariano Rivera later said the whole country came together in a way he wished had never faded. Security changed forever. A song got added to the 7th inning that's still sung today. Baseball proved it could grieve with a nation. But what happens when the threat to the game doesn't come from outside? When the sport starts poisoning itself from within? Number 8. December 13th, 2007. 409 pages, 86 names. Former U.S. Senator George Mitchell spends 20 months investigating a rumor everyone whispered, but nobody wanted confirmed, that the greatest era of power hitting in baseball history was built on drugs. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, legends, suddenly radioactive. Mitchell doesn't just blame the players. He says commissioners, owners, even the players' union looked away for nearly 2 decades while it happened. Clemens fights back in front of Congress and walks away acquitted. It doesn't matter. The suspicion sticks for years. 2 of the greatest players who ever lived get locked out of the Hall of Fame. Every home run from 1990 to 2007 is now viewed through a filter of doubt. And if you think a drug scandal was the worst thing labor did to this sport, you have no idea what happened 5 years earlier when players simply refused to show up. Number 7. August 12th, 1994. Players and owners can't agree on a salary cap, so the players walk. 232 days pass. Nearly 1,000 games vanish. Then something happens that survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression without ever happening before. No World Series. None. For the first time since 1904. A columnist predicted the men behind this fight would go down as traitors to the game. Fans didn't just get angry, they stopped trusting baseball at all. It took a federal judge, a woman named Sonia Sotomayor, years before she'd sit on the Supreme Court to finally force it to end. Attendance and ratings collapsed for years, and the very thing that eventually brought fans back turned out to be tangled up in the scandal we just talked about. But a canceled season is still just business. What happened next involved something far more permanent, a punishment that was supposed to last forever. Number 6. August 1989, baseball's all-time hits leader, more hits than any human being who has ever played this game, is banned. For life. An investigation finds Pete Rose bet on at least 50 of his own team's games in a single year, sometimes $10,000 a day, on games he was managing. Rose accepts the ban rather than let baseball issue a formal ruling. 8 days later, the commissioner who banned him drops dead of a heart attack. Rose denies betting on baseball for 15 straight years, then admits it in his own book. He goes to prison, not for gambling, but for tax evasion. He dies in 2024, still banned. Here's where it gets strange. In May of 2025, last year, the current commissioner rules that baseball's bans end at death. Rose is suddenly eligible for the Hall of Fame. So is a man from an even darker story on this list. Earliest possible induction, 2028. A punishment everyone assumed was permanent?
Number 5. October 17th, 1989, Candlestick Park, 31 minutes before first pitch of Game 3 of the World Series. Players are literally standing on the field. The earth starts shaking. Magnitude 6.9. Broadcaster Al Michaels is live on air. He calls it the greatest open in television history. Then, the signal dies completely. 67 people are dead, thousands injured, billions in damage. A freeway collapses, buildings crumble in San Francisco. The series doesn't resume for 10 days. Here's the detail almost nobody knows. Some experts believe the broadcast may have actually saved lives, because so many commuters were home watching baseball instead of stuck in the rush hour traffic where most of the fatalities happened. A natural disaster colliding with America's pastime, live, on camera. Nothing like it has happened before or since. But nature didn't take the next legend from this game. A decision did.
Number 4. August 2nd, 1979. The Yankees team captain, an MVP, 11 years in the league. He's practicing landings in a jet he's owned for exactly 3 weeks. 4:02 in the afternoon, the plane comes in too low, clips a tree, crashes short of the runway. The 2 other men aboard survive. Thurman Munson does not. Investigators find pilot error, his airspeed too low, his seatbelt unfastened. His teammate later said the team essentially lost the rest of that season emotionally right then and there. His locker stayed untouched at Yankee Stadium for years. A Hall of Fame career gone at 32 in a plane he didn't need to be flying. And yet, even this wasn't the first time a plane crash stole a superstar from this sport. 3 years earlier, something even harder to accept happened, because that time, the player chose to get on the plane. Number 3. December 31st, 1972. An earthquake has just devastated Nicaragua. Roberto Clemente, a Hall of Famer who'd recorded his 3,000th career hit just 3 months before, hears that relief supplies aren't reaching victims. The military is seizing them instead. So Clemente does something almost no superstar in history would risk. He gets on the cargo plane himself to make sure the aid actually arrives. That plane had documented mechanical problems. Just 29 days earlier, it had been damaged and never properly repaired. On a moonless night, overloaded, it loses an engine seconds after takeoff and goes down into the ocean. The entire flight lasts less than 3 minutes. His body is never recovered. Only the pilot's remains are found. Baseball waives its usual waiting period and puts him in the Hall of Fame immediately. The sport's highest honor for character still carries his name. A superstar at the height of his powers, dead trying to save people he would never meet. And still, this isn't the darkest day in baseball history. Because before Clemente, before Munson, before any plane ever went down, this sport had already killed one of its own, in front of a live crowd with a single pitch. This scandal is why the commissioner's office exists at all. It's why baseball's anti-gambling rules are as strict as they are, over 100 years later. And here's the twist you didn't see coming. In May of 2025, the sport ruled that ineligibility ends at death, opening the door for Jackson and for Pete Rose to finally reach the Hall of Fame. Earliest possible induction, 2028. 105 years later, baseball's darkest scandal is still being rewritten in real time. Death, disaster, betrayal, corruption, every one of these days should have broken this sport permanently. Instead, baseball rewrote its own rules and kept playing. So which one of these do you think changed the game forever? Tell us in the comments. I read every one. Number 1.
October 1919, the World Series. 8 members of the Chicago White Sox, one of the best rosters in baseball, secretly agree to lose. On purpose. For money. Cincinnati wins a championship it should never have won. For almost a year, nothing happens. Just whispers. Then, in September 1920, 4 players walk into a grand jury room and confess. Some of the biggest stars in the sport admitting they fixed America's championship for cash. They go to trial in the summer of 1921, and then something almost unbelievable happens. They're acquitted because the signed confessions had mysteriously vanished from the court's own files. It doesn't matter. The very next day, baseball's brand new commissioner bans all 8 men from the game for life. No jury needed. One of them, Buck Weaver, never took a single dollar. He was banned just for knowing about the fix and staying quiet. Another, Shoeless Joe Jackson, became the most tragic figure in American sports mythology. A phrase was born from this scandal, one that still gets used today for any betrayed hope in sports.
This scandal is why the commissioner's office exists at all. It's why baseball's anti-gambling rules are as strict as they are over 100 years later. And here's the twist you didn't see coming. In May of 2025, the sport ruled that ineligibility ends at death, opening the door for Jackson and for Pete Rose to finally reach the Hall of Fame. Earliest possible induction, 2028. 105 years later, baseball's darkest scandal is still being rewritten in real time. Death, disaster, betrayal, corruption, every one of these days should have broken this sport permanently. Instead, baseball rewrote its own rules and kept playing. So which one of these do you think changed the game forever? Tell us in the comments. I read every one.